It's 2:39 a.m. on November 9th. Over the dark Caribbean Sea, three US Air Force B-1 B Lancers cut across the sky in combat formation. Inside the lead bomber, the crew sits in complete silence as the bomb bay doors open. A loud tone hits their headsets. The mission commander gives a short, steady call. "Stand by. Weapons ready." Below them is Venezuela's coastline, still covered by clouds, but every screen in the jet shows the same thing. The coordinates for La Carlota, the military site inside Caracas, are locked in. The crew feels the jet shake as the first missile drops. 1 second later, the engine on the missile lights up, turning a dark sky into a streak of fire. Then another missile falls. Then another. Soon, 36 JASSM cruise missiles push toward the capital at high speed. From the cockpit camera, the flashes look almost slow, but the crew knows the truth. They just started the strike that Washington approved only hours earlier. No one says a word. The only sound is the steady voice in the headset. "Bone flight, weapons away, Phase 1 is live." And at that moment, there is no going back. The strike on La Carlota didn't begin tonight. It began 3 weeks earlier, when tension between the US and Venezuela kept rising. On October 18th, two Venezuelan Su-30 seconds flew dangerously close to a US Navy paid inches international airspace. They got so close the American crew could see the jet numbers on their tails. It was not routine at all. It was a bold move. Then, on October 22nd, a Venezuelan S-300 VM radar locked onto a US B-52 flying offshore. For 6 minutes, the crew listened to the warning tone. That means you are being targeted. That moment alone could have triggered a response, but things kept climbing. Days later, Venezuelan patrol boats cut in front of a US destroyer and claimed waters that international law does not recognize. Another push, another gamble. But the real trigger came on November 8th. A Pecora 2M missile battery fired at a US MQ-9 Reaper operating outside Venezuelan airspace. The missile missed, but the message was loud. Washington held an emergency meeting that same night. Every intercept, every warning, every radar lock got reviewed. The pattern was clear. Venezuela had crossed from unsafe behavior into actual use of force. That is why La Carlota became the center of the strike. It wasn't just an airfield. It had turned into a temporary military hub, packed with helicopters, fuel, radar trucks, and officers directing air defenses around Caracas. Hitting it meant stopping more incidents before they grew into a wider conflict. To the people inside the B-1Bs, this was not politics. It was about the crews who had been put in danger again and again. As they approached the target, every warning from the past 3 weeks felt real, close, and unfinished. So now I ask you, who pushed this too far first? Venezuela or the US? If you think Venezuela crossed the line, press 1. If you believe the US had no choice left, press 9 and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. The first signs of the strike appeared at 2:58 a.m., long before anyone in Caracas understood what was coming. High above the Caribbean, two US Navy EA-18G Growlers pushed out heavy electronic noise. On Venezuelan radar screens, clear targets turned into drifting lines. One technician hit the side of his console, thinking it was a glitch, but the static only got worse. At 3:04 a.m., 16 US F-35Cs launched 24 AARGM missiles. On American screens, each missile showed a clean arc toward its target. Inside a Pecora 2M control cabin, the crew tried switching frequencies, but every band was jammed. Their radios crackled, then died. When they finally called for a full shutdown, the first missile was already seconds away. A white flash hit the cabin, and the radar picture vanished. One by one, radar sites around Caracas went dark. A P-19 on a nearby hill flickered off. A short-range radar near a fuel dump burst in flames. Officers inside a backup command room watched their map empty itself until nothing was left but silence. The capital was blind. And that was exactly when the B-1Bs reached launch point. Inside Bone 01, The mission commander leaned over the screens as the weapons officer began a quiet countdown. 20 seconds, 15, 10. His hand hovered above the trigger button. No one spoke. The cockpit felt tight, like the whole jet was waiting on a single breath. 5, 3, 1, confirmed. 36 JASSMs dropped cleanly from the bombers. The jet shifted slightly with each release. On the display, the missiles fell into formation, engines lighting up over the dark water as they curved toward the city far to the south. Down below in La Carlota, a night technician stepped out of a hangar after hearing a low, deep rumble. He thought it might be a passing plane, but something felt wrong. The air seemed too still. He grabbed his radio, but the channel was dead. He took one more step toward the runway without knowing the first missile was less than 2 minutes away. Inside the B-1B, the commander gave the next call. Bone flight, Phase 1 complete. Hold course. Prepare for Phase 2. Every crew member tightened their harness. They knew the next step would hit even harder, and the window to react was closing fast. If you were inside that base, would you run or stand your ground? Press 1 or 9 and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. The first JASSMs crossed the Venezuelan coast at low altitude, sliding under the few radar systems still working. With long-range sensors gone, the defenders had no idea dozens of missiles were already on the way. The only warning was a deep rumble that grew across the night air. The first explosion hit the helicopter ramp on the north side of La Carlota. A bright flash tore metal panels off the ground and threw debris across the field. Mechanics inside a hangar dropped flat as every window shattered at once. Before they could stand, the second missile hit the fuel depot. A huge fireball lit the sky red and rolled smoke through nearby neighborhoods. For a brief moment, everything froze. No radio calls, no engines. Only the sound of fire spreading across the base. Then another blast slammed into the command building, cutting through walls and dropping power lines. Officers inside tried to restart backup radios, but nothing connected. Every screen showed the same message: no signal. Across Caracas, people woke as the echoes bounced through the valley. Some stepped onto balconies, watching the sky glow orange without understanding what was happening. The attack felt sudden, but it had been building for weeks. High above the Caribbean, the B-1Bs moved into Phase 2. With every JASSM fired, they were closing in on the point where the JDAM run would begin. Inside Bone 01, the weapons officer checked the coordinates again, hands steady but tight. The next step would decide if the base could fight back. "Bone flight, stand by," the commander called. The bomb bay doors opened. On the screen, rows of JDAMs weighted each map to a target. The runway, the hangars, the power units, the barracks. The mission was simple: take away the base's ability to respond. On the ground, a small group of soldiers tried to man a Zu-23 gun position, but they couldn't find anything to aim at. Smoke moved across the field, and the glow from burning fuel blurred the horizon. The low whistle of incoming bombs grew louder. One soldier shouted for the others to pull back. The first JDAM hit the runway, blowing open a deep crater that split the asphalt in seconds. More impacts followed, each closer than the last, shaking the base like rolling thunder. As the B-1Bs prepared for the JDAM strike, something unexpected happened. A small Venezuelan radar site east of Caracas, an old P-19 unit missed in the first wave, suddenly flickered back on. For a few seconds, it caught a faint return far offshore. The operator shouted for someone to report it, but the main command center was already destroyed, and every radio channel was buried in static. Those few seconds caused confusion. A nearby short-range air defense team heard part of the report and rushed to ready their Igla launchers. They believed incoming aircraft were closing on the city. Smoke from the burning fuel depot made the sky glow, turning reflections into what looked like moving targets. With no orders and no clear radar picture, the team argued whether to fire or hold. Their officer demanded confirmation, but the headset only gave back noise. In the end, they hesitated. That hesitation gave the B-1Bs a clean window. No missiles came up, no warning, no defensive fire to force the bombers to change course. For the crews inside La Carlota, The silence meant they had no idea a second wave was already on the way. Above the city, the first JDAMs began to fall. On the bomber screens, they appeared as small white dots gliding toward the targets. On the ground, soldiers near the Zu-23 gun were still trying to spot something in the sky. The first blast threw them to the ground, covering the area in dust and smoke. One moment of doubt had changed everything. So here's the question. In that moment, would you fire without orders? Or hold and hope you're right? Press 1 or 9 and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. The first JDAM hit the runway with a powerful blast that shook the entire base. Asphalt split open as debris flew high into the air. Seconds later, another bomb struck the far end, carving a deep crater that made the strip useless. The shockwave rolled through every building like distant thunder. Then, the hangars took the next hits. A JDAM punched through the roof of the main helicopter hangar and detonated inside, blowing out the walls and crushing Mi-17 and Mi-35 helicopters under falling steel. Mechanics who had been hiding felt the floor jump as smoke and dust filled the room. A second JDAM collapsed the next hangar, setting off a fire that lit the east side of La Carlota in bright orange flames. Inside the B-1Bs, the crews watched the impacts on their screens. No one cheered. The weapons officer only gave calm updates. Direct hit, target destroyed. More bombs dropped in steady rhythm, each one sending another shock through the city. On the ground, soldiers sprinted toward a bunker near the barracks, but the next volley arrived first. A JDAM exploded in the center of the housing area, blowing doors off their frames and sending dust clouds into nearby streets. Power lines snapped, and lights in the neighborhoods flickered out. A radar truck shook violently as a JDAM hit a power unit beside it. The crew bailed out as flames climbed over the vehicle, but smoke pushed them back. Every direction seemed dangerous now. Above the chaos, the B-1Bs lined up for their final pass. "Bone flight, release last package," the commander said. The last row of JDAMs dropped toward the fuel storage area and utility buildings. The impact sent fire shooting upward, lighting the city like a torch. By the time the echoes faded, La Carlota was no longer a functioning military base. Bone flight, weapons expended, no threats detected. RTB. The three bombers banked north, leaving behind a field of smoke and fire spreading across Caracas. If you witnessed this from the ground or sky, who do you think pushed this conflict to this point, Venezuela or the US? Press 1 or 9 and subscribe so you don't miss the final chapter. By 3:48 a.m., the strike was finished. La Carlota, active less than an hour earlier, was now a field of fire and broken concrete. Flames from the fuel depot kept burning along the east side of the base, sending black smoke drifting over central Caracas. Rescue teams tried to move in, but the heat and scattered debris slowed every step. As dawn approached, the full picture came into view. The runway was split open by deep craters. Both helicopter hangars were destroyed, leaving Mi-17 and Mi-35 helicopters crushed under twisted beams. Radar trucks, power units, and communication posts were either burned out or blown apart. Nothing left on the field looked ready to fight again. Casualty teams worked through the morning. Dozens of Venezuelan soldiers were confirmed dead, and many more were injured by collapsing structures or fires rolling across the base. Several civilians living around La Carlota were hurt by shattered windows or small fires started by debris. For many in Caracas, the night felt like a sudden shock they never expected. But the damage went beyond the base itself. Losing La Carlota took away almost all helicopter support for the capital and broke a key link in the city's air defense network. With radar units destroyed and officers gone, the remaining defenses struggled to rebuild any clear picture of the airspace. For hours, the government operated with limited awareness. In Washington, commanders reviewed every strike and called the mission a clear example of how long-range precision weapons paired with electronic attack can shut down a military site without crossing foreign airspace. Analysts around the world took notice. Older defense systems, even inside a capital, showed they could be dismantled in minutes. But the bigger question remained. If a base like this could fall in under 40 minutes, What would the next confrontation look like? How fast would the next warning come? And how little time would anyone get to react? Because this wasn't the end. It was only the first shock in a growing standoff, and the next move might arrive even faster.